Please join me in welcoming to Google New York, Jacques Pépin.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you so much for coming. It's
Google did not exist when I moved to New York.
Google didn't exist when I moved to New York, I think, either.
No, none of you existed when I moved to New York. I was 1959, so I wasn't kidding, you see.
Well, so now this tome that we talked about, which truly I think does weigh more than my child.
Yes,
yes. It was originally 2 books.
That's not cuisine minceur. It's very heavy.
Yes, it is. So it was originally. Cuisine. Pardon?
It's not light cuisine. It's very heavy.
Heavy cuisine. So it was originally 2 books, La Technique et la Méthode. So that you originally wrote in the late 70s.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration for the original 2 books and then why you decided to combine them?
Yeah, actually, I had a friend of mine who kind of became my surrogate mother. Her name was Helen McCauley. She was the food editor of McCall, House Beautiful. I live on 50th and First Avenue at the time.
We're all going to show up. There's going to be a line.
And I started writing. She always pushed me, do this, do that. Don't put those stupid socks we have in front. Don't do this, don't do that. And I started doing little things for House Beautiful. And I said, you know, what would be good is to show people how to do it. So we decided to do pictures. Those were pictures in black and white about the size of a stamp, you know, so you couldn't see anything. And so that was the beginning of that book. And I met a friend of mine, Craig Claiborne, who was the food editor of the New York Times. I went with House in East Hampton, and there I met Herb Nagourne. He was the president of the New York Times book company called Quadrangle. And he said, you want to do a book with us? I said, yeah, I'd love to. So I started, and I said, well, you know, maybe I need like 400 pictures. And I called him, I said, maybe like 800. He said, okay, go ahead. I said, like 1,200. He said, okay, like 1,500. He said, okay, 1,500, that's enough. So I did a book about 1,500 pictures, and I did a second one, which we didn't want to call La Technique number 2, so we find a synonym and call it La Méthode. That was a continuation of this, and those books were in print for many, many years, and about 12 years ago, I reorganized the material too, and we did a large book out of it. And then this year, we again reorganized the material and took some picture, a lot of picture in color that I have in a book called The Art of Cooking, Volume 1 and 2, that I did in the end of the 80s, which is probably the best book that I've done. We reorganized and reused those pictures in there. Interestingly enough, you know, I have some book, after like 8-10 years, people look at it and say, well, we can't really use it, the pictures are obsolete, you know, technology goes so fast. And it's true that there is a certain style, like a few years ago, where you would you know, focus on the main dish, you know, to shoot a picture and make it very clear, and all the outside kind of cloudy and in a moody kind of romantic way, you know. That was a style of cooking, a style of shooting, which can date the picture pretty much. But that doesn't happen with this, because those are just a close-up of my hand, you know, boning out a chicken, turning a thing, and so forth. So that's why they didn't get obsolete. And the point is that the technique, the way you beat an egg white or peel an asparagus, bone out a chicken, make an omelette, or do a caramel cage, is the same now than it was 50 years ago. You know, I am Dean of Study at the French Culinary Institute here, and we have what they call the competency, like 250, which are like technique we have to cover. And like doing eggs, you have to know how to do scrambled eggs, poached eggs, this and that. Well, the poached eggs, we do it now the same way we did 50 years ago. Except 50 years ago, we put a hollandaise sauce and some truffle on top, a piece of ham underneath, a brioche. So that was a, you know, egg Benedictine. Now you may do your eggs with a little tiny asparagus head, just sauté in a much more modern way. But basically, the technique themselves don't change, you know.
Right. So why did you feel the need to combine these into one volume?
To sell more and make money.
Very smart of you.
Well, I think that I have a series on television now called Essential Pépin, which I taped last year, or started last year. And I have a book in it, but what makes it in the book, I have a 2 hours DVD of technique, three and a half hours DVD of technique. You know, a great deal of the technique that I have in there. And in fact, when they say, well, we want to do that book. We want to do something different too. And at that point, they said, it'd be great if you do a DVD going with it. I said, that's great. I just did one for the other book. So they said, well, can you do one there? I said, no, it would be redundant, you know. So this is basically what I have in there here. And, you know, frankly, I teach at Boston University for the last 30 years and at the French Culinary Institute here in New York. Those schools, you go, and it's like 40 grand, you know, 45 grand, I mean, for the program. And basically all of that is on that 3 hours tape. I mean, not all of it, but a great deal of the technique.
Don't tell anyone.
It's just amazing.
Boston University is not going to be happy with you right now when they hear this tape.
Oh, well. No, we do some good class there. I was there last week with a group of like 10 people. I do, you know, your participation class and demonstration, which I do demonstration usually, but there I do like the perfect meal for me, a roast chicken, a boiled potato, a salad, but it has to be done exactly one certain way too. So I can do it, excuse me, the student eat it, and then they go behind the stove, each one with a chicken, and then they redo it. Of course, the class ends up in like 5 hours. And that's what I tell them very often, you know, don't try to blow my mind and make something different with it. Cook with your guts. In some way, you cannot escape yourself anyway. And for the better or for the worse, you have 15 people here. I am going to have 15 different chicken. 2 undercooked, 2 overcooked, 2 burned, 1 cold, 2 hot, and so forth. But they will be different, you know, because you really cannot cook like the person next to you. You are not that person, you know, and so that's important.
Well, so you wear so many different hats in your life and have throughout your career, everything, you know, from being the dean of various schools, various cooking institutions, to writing all these books and the television shows. Which has been your favorite thing to do?
Well, all of it, in a sense, you know. I get bored if I had to do the same thing. I mean, I had a column in the New York Times for like 10 years, like in the 80s. If you only have to do that, you know, you're always pressured by one thing or another, or book and so forth. But I go teaching, or I was a consultant at the Russian Tea Room. I opened the World Trade Center here, the consultant. So it's a type of work. Then you go back to doing an article for this, and I teach. You know, that's the beauty of doing all things related to food, but different things. But to a certain extent, probably teaching, I like it, yeah.
Well, so you were on a much-loved show with Julia Child, Julie and Jacques.
Yes.
There seems like there's stories there. Can you, you know, and you guys were really the pioneers of the sort of television chef and sort of celebritization of chefs. Can you tell us a bit about your favorite memories with Julia?
Boy, there's so many memories, you know. I met Julia in 1960, and we became friends. And then we cooked together very occasionally. And when I started teaching at BU, I would always see her from breakfast to lunch to late night drink or whatever with Julia. And at some point, I said, maybe we should do a PBS special. And we did at BU what we call Cooking in Concert. It was a 2 hours show that we taped in the Thai auditorium at BU, and which was shown. That was just prior to the Food Channel Network. So it was widely shown on PBS. And then that led us to do another 2 hour special, and eventually we did the series together. You know, conventionally, when you do a series, I have done some with my daughter, Claudine. I have done 12 series of 26 shows, mostly with KQED, the PBS station in San Francisco. But I remember doing series years ago where it was on time. So, you know, a 30-minute show with like 28 and a half minutes, whatever. So I have like 3 dishes or 4 dishes to do. And there was a guy going back with a sign, 9 minutes, you know, 6 minutes, 5, 3, 1, 30 seconds, wrap up, and so forth. And it can be a bit stressful. You want to look kind of suave and go, and the thing has to be finished. So when I start doing some with Claudine, my daughter, I say, you know, I'm supposed to teach the kid how to cook. And if I show her how to make a pie, and she's rolling the dough and struggling, and the guy goes back, say 3 minutes, I push the kid over, grab the dough. So I say, they say, okay, well, don't go too much. Editing is expensive, so we end up show, you know, 35, 38 minutes. They have to do editing a little bit. Then we did the show with Julia, and Julia said, you know, we're going to cook. When it's finished, we'll tell you. We did some show, I think the longest one, 120 minutes. you know, for a 30, you know, for a 30-minute show. And of course, it was great. We keep drinking wine, we cook. Okay, it's over, finish. And I am amazed sometimes. I've seen some of the show where it's very smooth and all that. You know, it wasn't that smooth at all, and it was much too long. But the beauty of editing, I suppose. But you know, PBS. Julia loves to work for PBS, as I do. We don't have to cow to sponsor and stuff like that. In fact, we don't even have the right to work for sponsor and all that. Not that I'm so a great pure. If you pay me enough, I'll work for anyone. But kidding. But the point is, Julia was happy. So one time, I remember we had Kendall Jackson came, and Jess Jackson and his wife Barbara Banky own Cambria winery, and he owned Artisan and Estate, which is like 30 winery, Pepi, La Crema, Stone Street, all of those. So we had a lot of wine. They were very nice people. He told me, you can have any wine you want. Well, I didn't want to take Mondavi wine next to him, but I had French wine and Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, whatever, South African. And we started, and you know, already started having a glass of white wine, and we start cooking too. So they call and say, could we come, we'd like to come see a couple of show taped, and maybe we take you out for dinner with Julia. I said, terrific, because they became friends with me. So they came. They were in the room, you know, the control room, wherever, where you can see the show. And Jeff Drummond, the producer, said, well, Kendall Jackson is there. I mean, Jess Jackson, what are you going to say? I said, Jess, it's not like we don't drink wine. Fine, we'll drink wine. I don't know what we'll drink, but we'll drink. So we finished the show, and I even forget what we did. But I tell Julia, okay, that's great. Do you want a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon with that, or you want a Merlot? She said, I want beer. I said, what do you mean you want beer? She said, we don't have beer. We have beer. She had beer underneath. We don't have beer. I tell Julia, I mean, maybe we don't have to cow to the sponsor, but we don't really have to antagonize them. You know what I mean? And then she did the same thing with the president of Land O'Lake, who came. I mean, it's not like Julia didn't use butter. I said, more butter. Put another stick of butter, 2 sticks of butter. So we did, and so the producer said, what are you going to do? I said, Jeff, I'm doing a dough, and I'm going to do a tart with it, a big galette. And then with the rest of them, I'll show them how to cover a dish to do a chicken pot pie, whatever. And we had no recipe, you know, when I did the show with Julia. So at the last moment, we changed or whatever. So Julia said, I want to do my show. I want to do my dough. I said, fine, you want to do your dough? Okay, fine. So I said, Julia, so I started, I made the dough, roll it, put that, and I said, now Julia is going to show you how to do another dough. She said, well, Jacques is going to do it, which is always she did. So I said, okay, fine. She said, I want you to do it in the food processor. She said, okay. Take the food processor. I said, all right, what, a couple of cups of flour, yeah, dash of sugar, dash of salt. I said, how much butter she wants? She said, I want Crisco. What do you want? You want Crisco. President of Land O'Lake is there. We had no Crisco. We never used. She had a can of Crisco underneath. She grabbed it. And we did half butter, half Crisco. Yeah. That was Julia.
I was going to ask you to do an impression of Julia Child, but I feel like
okay.
We've already been treated to one. You do a very good Julia Child.
Not really, not as good as my daughter. When my daughter was born, I already knew Julia Child, which is a long time because Claudine is going to be 45. Yeah? In any case, I talk often on the telephone with Julia, and Claudine, my daughter, ended up doing a very good imitation of Julia. I mean, terrific. So, and she used to do that all the time. And she went to college at BU, so I'm teaching there. So she went to BU, so she used to call one time, I'm having dinner with my wife, and telephone rang. Gloria picked up the telephone. She said, okay, Claudine, well, what do you want? To go? Stop fooling around. What do you want? So, and all she said, oh, no, I'm sorry, Julia. I'm sorry. I'll call him right away. She thought it was Claudine doing her imitation of Julia. So she was good.
Well, I'm going to do a couple of finish this sentences with you because there's a lot of people here that I know have questions that are going to be better than anything I can come up with. We've already chatted on the way in, so I want to make sure we leave some time for everybody. So those of you who do have questions, please get ready to go to one of the mics as we are recording this for YouTube. So I'll just ask you to finish the sentence that I'm going to read to you.
All right.
The most essential technique to learn in the kitchen is
How to drink wine properly. You have to.
Well, so now you were at a wine event this morning. Can you tell us about that?
This morning I was intronized as a compagnon du Beaujolais, I am from Beaujolais, actually, in France. And the Beaujolais Nouveau, the new Beaujolais, start on the 15th of November every year. So they came this morning. We went down Park Avenue with a guy on a trumpet playing when the sun go marching in, and we had a bottle of Beaujolais. So I had some this morning, too. I feel all right.
Yeah.
But Angeli gave me a sandwich and a banana, a couple of fig.
We treat our guests well here.
Yes.
You didn't bring me any wine, but we'll talk about
Google sandwich is amazing.
It was good, right?
Oof, incredible.
Ham sandwich.
Yes.
Goes nicely with the Beaujolais.
Pam sandwich, that's what it was?
Ham.
Oh, I thought you
Jambon.
said Pam. Okay, jambon.
No, Pam sandwich. What would a Pam sandwich entail?
Yeah.
Pam like the spray?
Yeah. Well, when you're broke,
It's a tight budget year, that's true, but not that tight. Okay, now finish the sentence. A food trend I hate is?
Molecular cooking. Oh, no, I don't
You can
like
say
molecular cooking sometime, no. Food trend that I ate. I can't think of any because I'm a real glutton, So I eat anything you put in front of me.
Including a ham sandwich.
Ham sandwich, yeah.
I'll remember that for next time. My favorite kitchen tool is?
My finger. I mean, there's nothing to replace your finger. It squeeze, it crash, it strain, it twist, it kill.
All purpose. The thing I missed most about France is?
Well, my mother, she's still there.
Somebody's laughing in the audience. I'm not sure why. I thought that was
She's
sweet.
98, though, so she's getting there. But I saw her this spring. I am executive culinary director of Oceania Cruise Line, So we do a couple of cruise years, and I tend to go to Lyon and see her and my cousin and so forth. And it's always fun.
If I wanted to impress Julia Child, I would have made blank.
I would have given her the best one that I have in my cellar to start with, and probably a ham sandwich. She loves ham. I do love ham too. We have that book called The Last Meal of My Life, something like that. We have 50 chefs on it, and they ask you what is the best thing you can eat. And if you have the greatest bread that I can think of, and the greatest butter that I can think of, it's very difficult to beat bread and butter. It's true. That being said, I probably will have squid with fresh peas and maybe a can of caviar, probably a hot dog, ham and egg. I love all that stuff, are things that I like. But be sure that it would be a very, 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 very long meal. If it has to be the last one.
Well, thank you so much. I think we're going to open it up to questions if anyone has any.
Preferably about food and wine, but
anything.
Yes. Do they need the mic? No?
They need the mic, yes,
Oh, yeah.
please. We're recording.
You're recording this?
We are.
Oh, my God.
I have to have you sign a release. I have to remember to do that.
Yeah, so next week, is this working? Next week, obviously, we have Thanksgiving coming up, which is, probably the biggest food holiday. So I was wondering if there are any particular culinary traditions that you liked on Thanksgiving.
Did you see the New York Times yesterday? Mm-hmm. I had my turkey in the New York Times yesterday. And as I said in the article, I haven't actually read it, with the truth. But so I don't know what they cut out of what I wrote. But certainly I had my friend Susie Heller, who was the producer of the show for Julia and so forth. Like 30 years ago, we went to, she lived in Cleveland at the time. And she said, oh, I'm going to do Thanksgiving, I want you to come. I say, great. She said, I'm going to do a big saddle of veal, be different. I said, what? I said, if you don't do turkey, I'm not going. Thanksgiving is turkey. So she got some turkey, and she got even went to a butcher. She had a butcher. She had a fresh turkey. And she said, you have something special. Can you get some turkey fry for me? And butcher
Wait, can you
said,
tell them what turkey fry is?
turkey fry.
I learned this earlier.
Turkey testicle. Well, they call it turkey fried. So butcher said, well, let me call the farm. So she called the farm. He said, yeah, we can get it, but I have to have an inspector, a guy to, he said, oh, wait a minute, how much is that going to cost? He said, well, 80 cents a pound. All right, fine. Give me 3 pounds. So I came back, and she said, I got some of you for you. I said, oh, turkey bowl, that's good. So we fry them, and we give them, all the guests didn't know what it was anyway. So those little sausages are really good, and when we told some of them what it was, some had to go out to throw up, but... And then Susie, another year, many years later, she lives in Napa Valley now, came and we did the mother of all Thanksgiving, which again I mentioned in that article. There was Thomas Keller cooking, Pat Cora, Dan Beerbaum, a lot of great chefs, like 8, and I think we did 8 different types of turkey. There was a split up and pomegranate glazed grilled turkey. There was a sous vide turkey. There was a deep fried turkey. There was a brine turkey. There was a regular roasted turkey. There was a turkey I did with Julia, which was bone out, where I bone out the leg and roast the breast separately. And then the one that I had in the New York Times yesterday, which is steamed first and then roasted after. What was your question? What is it about the...
Well, it was, what is your favorite Thanksgiving tradition? But I guess my follow-up...
Yeah, the turkey. Right. I say it's amazing that with such a Puritan beginning, it became the most probably hedonistic celebration that we have here. And the best, because there is no political implication or religious implication. You don't have any gift to give to anyone. There is nothing with the kid, so it's purely the pleasure of sitting down, overeating and over-drinking. So that's great.
Yes.
Hi. I wonder if you can provide any inspiration for working parents who are short on time but still want to provide a special meal for their families?
Well, very easy. You got to buy my book. And not that one, or that one also if you want. But I have 2 books. Yes, I did. No, it's a good question. I did 2 series on television, not the last one that I have now. 2 series before called Fast Food My Way. One book, so those are 26 shows, so it's about 130 recipes. So I have Fast Food My Way and More Fast Food My Way. We did 2 series. And the premises was that, probably at the antipode of this one, the premises was that when you work in a restaurant, you have the prep cook who come in the morning, and he bone out the chicken, bone out the fish, slice the mushroom, wash the spinach, chop the shallot. You have everything ready. Nothing is cooked, but it's ready, fresh. So I get behind the stove. The first order is a fillet of salt, whatever. I grab it. It's done. I put a bit of shallots on top, some sliced mushroom, a dash of white wine, bring it to a boil, finish it with a piece of butter, and I do that dish in 5-6 minutes because I have the prep, ready for me. So I did those books with the same idea. I use the supermarket as a prep cook, and we can do that now. So I had 2 boneless, skinless breasts of chicken, a pre-washed spinach. I have a non-stick pan. When I did those shows of 30 minutes, which are like 28 and a half, I did 4 dishes, and I had nothing prepared. I usually did them on time there, You go to the supermarket, now I go to the deli, and I take a container. It's all the same price anyway, so I take some black olives, some Kalamata olives, some green one, some boncinelli, a little bowl of mozzarella, some dry tomato too, and I'm making a salad. I get home to put a bit more olive oil on top of that, some fresh basil. I buy a package of ham. I take some martini glass, a nice honey-cured ham, put big slice of ham hanging on the side, fill it up with my salad, first course, fine. Using the supermarket in those ways, it's true, with a minimal amount of effort and still have fresh, good food. Because it's very important to have the kid partake of what you do, to involve the kid and all that, and not to give the kid the idea that your house is a restaurant and the kid is going to eat à la carte. I don't like this, I don't like that. That didn't exist. My daughter, that's what we served tonight. That was it. That was dinner. And when Claudine was 5 years old, asked her mother, my wife, Mom, what's for dinner? My wife would say food, and it's still food now. That's what we have for dinner. So we never specify the type of food, you know. Now, but try that type of thing, you know. It's good. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you.
Your voice is very familiar because I grew up while my mom was watching you 24/7. So
Oh, thank you.
a lot of memories coming back. So I know this is about cooking, and your book is about cooking, and you're all about cooking. But for us lazy New Yorkers, what's your favorite restaurant in New York, and what would you order there?
Well, you know, it's a leading question. 2 days ago, I was in Chinatown in Flushing, and had lunch in $8 or $10, whatever we spend per person, in a Shanghai restaurant. So, you know, there is many places like this that you can eat. I have to say, in New York, in Manhattan, the French Culinary Institute, where I am a dean of the school there occasionally, it's one of the best deals in New York. The food has to be super fresh morning, and again night, because the students at night start by peeling their carrot and stuff, can't even use the stock or whatever from the morning. So, and we do a lunch, I think $30, and the 5-course dinner is $41, I think. So it's really cheap for New York, and the food is quite fresh and good. So,
Where would you go tonight?
tonight, I don't know. Angeli didn't tell me where she's taking me, so I have.
Ham sandwiches at Google.
Yeah. I don't know. I have to do a book signing tonight, and I may go back to the school actually for dinner. You know, we have very good wine too, good price. I mean, there is many. You know, you can look even in the Zagat and other on the internet. I mean, there is 24,000 restaurants in New York. It's just amazing. You know, some very expensive ones, some good ones. I mean, you can spend $1,000 easy. If you want to go to per se, to depend the wine you buy, or if you get into caviar or stuff like this. But you know what? I think it's even more expensive in Europe now. You know, those type of restaurants. Anyway, I didn't answer your question, right? No, okay.
It's a very diplomatic way of skirting around.
No,
You could be a
there's-
lawyer at Google.
Yes,
with
thank
that.
you.
That's very impressive.
That's a compliment? Or?
Yeah, seriously, able to
Okay.
like dance around is a very
No,
much a
no,
compliment.
it's a compliment, yeah.
It's the highest compliment, some might say. Very few people, but somebody might say. Those people laughing, those people would say it. Yeah.
Good.
So in the U.S., there's been a long campaign of eliminating fat from food. Everything is low fat, no fat. And as a result, a lot of the food has gotten sweeter to compensate for the lack of flavor. I read that maybe 80% of the food in the supermarket now is artificially sweetened. What do you think of that?
You
trend?
can go to 90%. You know, I mean, there was 2,300 cookbook published last year. In the last 20 years, 25 years, most of them mine. No, so, in the last 25 years, 30 years, we've done over 20,000 books related to losing weight and diet. And we are now 40% fatter than 30 years ago. It doesn't seem to work. I don't know, you know, I think you can eat whatever you want, but you can't swallow it. That's the problem. But it is true, and your percentage is even low. It's like 90% now. The amount of sugar that you have in something like ketchup and all that savory stuff is just amazing, you know, more than in soda. It's really frightening. For me, you start with kids and all that. First, you never eat something you can't recognize. It's already a good step, you know. And many often, well, of course, for most kids, a chicken is rectangular with plastic on top, doesn't have any feet and head, but you still know that it's chicken. But now I don't know, somewhere not too long ago, and there was a little kid. So you move from this to something less recognizable to either even Cheerio or stuff like that, cereal, where you look on the box, you don't really know exactly what's in there, you know. But now the kid, that kid there where I was, would ask her mother, she wanted to eat the red box or the green box. So now it goes one step further. The food is recognized just by the color of the box. That's why they have absolutely no idea what's in there. You know, you have to avoid processed food at all costs because that's really deadly, you know, the junk that there is in it. But, of course, on the other hand, markets are opening. The markets have never been as beautiful as they are today. When I came to America, there was only one salad. It was iceberg, period. no leek, no shallot, no oriental vegetable. In supermarket, now the supermarket are absolutely beautiful. And people tell me no one cook anymore. So what do they do with the stuff at the end of the week? Someone must buy it. Otherwise, I mean, they wouldn't replenish it on Monday. So hopefully, yes, people are cooking, and then we are becoming locavore. I mean, you have to go local food now, organic, and so that all that is good. It used to be like that not that long ago. I always say my mother, my father were organic farmer. Of course, they had no idea what the word organic meant. And but the point is that chemical fertilizer did not exist, and fungicide, insecticide, pesticide did not exist either. So basically, we use some cow manure, whatever we had, we do the garden, and that was it. So we're going back to this, and it's fine. It's terrific, actually. And eating, from next door farm. But then we always exaggerate. Here we go, and I've been to a restaurant where they introduced me the carrot. This is the carrot. Her name is Sarah. She was born on the 7th of March. Give me the goddamn carrot. So we go too far sometimes.
That seems a bit extreme.
But it happens.
So don't go to that restaurant, whoever was asking for the restaurant.
So it feels like there's a lot more TV celebrity chefs now, and the rise of the food network
Yes.
and all that. So I'm just curious what your opinion of the current generation of TV chefs are. Are there any that you're a particular fan of or anything like that?
Well, I was, I forget where I was at in a convention a few weeks ago. There was a food historian saying that there is 407 cookery shows on television. Kind of blew my mind. I mean, I don't know whether it's accurate, frankly, but even if there is only 200 or so, it's just amazing. But people look at it for different reasons. I'm sure many people look at my show and say, that guy is boring. All he does is cook, and do, and whatever. And it's fine. Some other people do entirely for entertainment, for other type of things. And I think the more it brings people into food, the better it is. Every year I go to the Food and Wine Festival in Aspen. Last year was the 30th anniversary, and I think I did it 28 times. Many times with Julia, and then even my mother when she came. So it's 5,000 people there. Last year we drank 45,000 bottles of wine from Thursday until Monday. 5,000 people there, about 300 winery. And if you know Aspen, everyone is kind of very cliquish because it's all closed in there, no one has a car. And it's a great thing. Now everyone is into food, everyone knows you there. So people will come to me and say, I look at all the shows on television, you are the best. And the reason those people say that is that only the people who like me come to see me. The other one don't. They go to, I don't know, Bobby Flay next door and say, look at all the shows on television, you are the best, and so forth. That's the way I think it's fine. We all have our own way of doing things. Some people like it, some don't really care one way or the other. And so for me, I don't really look, tell you the truth, much at cookery show on television. Most of the time I don't. So I don't really know that many, but certainly show like Hell's Kitchen or whatever is certainly not the way to train someone in the kitchen. Because there is a great deal of love, at the sound of the risk of sounding a bit mushy, but the cooking, you have to cook with your gut. It's something which is automatic. There is a great deal of affection of love that you bring into what you do. And yelling at people it's not going to train someone properly. But I know that this is television, that's the way it is. If you go into the kitchen at PRC, Thomas Keller, or Jean-Georges, or Daniel, there's no noise. The chef is there, we order this, say, yes, chef, how we do. I say, pick up this, that, too. The guy pick up, no noise, you hear the cling of the thing. That's all you hear. It's very organized. It's like it's very structured and disciplined in a sense. So no television comes there. There's nothing to film. Saying that it's really boring. So they create those shows where everything is, hey man. I mean, but it's not really the way it is in a real kitchen. And as far as all the shows that there are some very good chefs on television. I mean, certainly people like Lydia Bastianich and Bobby Flay, Mario Battelli. I mean, those guys are really good chefs. I've seen some other who wouldn't recognize a carrot from a potato, but they don't do it for that. And often I ask people, how many people cook out of a show. Not that many, really. They look at it for other things, you know. That was your question, right? No, it's a question.
I was just wondering, like, if you remember the first thing you taught your daughter to cook, and what you would sort of recommend for someone as like a first way to introduce their children to the kitchen.
To cook with your daughter, you mean? Or children in general? Yeah, they say you have to get them involved. When Claudine was a year old, you know, yeah, I hold her in my arm and we cook. She stirred the pot. So she stirred it, quote, she made it. And she was going to taste it, of course. And as I said again, you know, we don't explain the menu, the children. We cook whatever we cooked. And you find out that the kid absolutely adore string beans for like a month. And then they hate string beans for another month. And then they like this and that. Claudine ended up, when she was a kid, like artichokes and Brussels sprouts were like their favorite vegetable. But, and also the fact that certainly she had frog legs and escargot, as we are French at my house, and the kids don't really mind that. Usually very small kid, up to like age 7, 8, and they go to school and they talk to their friends, say, you eat what? Yeah! And it disturbs. So that's, you have that type of thing, you know, that they want to be the same than their friend, and you have to go through that. I remember taking Claudine when she was like 10, 12 years old. We always spent a weekend together in New York, go to the theater or movie and go to a restaurant, and I say, okay, you want to go to see, excuse me, Tonton André, Uncle André was André Saltner, the owner of Lutèce, here because she knew him, you know, one of the greatest restaurants in New York. And she said, I said, it's your birthday. She said, can we go to Burger King or whatever? So I said, fine, okay. So, you know, nothing is wrong occasionally here and there, but I mean, the kids should be eating, should be partaking of the food, being part of it. And, you know, there is nothing better for a child coming back home and listening in the kitchen. The kitchen is the most comforting place of the house, and hearing the cling of the pot pans, I mean, the smell in the kitchen, you know, the voice of your mother, those smells, those sounds, and all that will remain with you the rest of your life. You know, it's a very, very important comfort zone, you know. You see that with those kids in Afghanistan or whatever now. You know, what you dream at night is that type of food, not really for the food, more for the comfort and what it brings. I think it was a Chinese philosopher, Li Yutang, I think, called, who said, in paraphrasing, patriotism is the taste of the dishes you had as a child. And there is a great deal of truth in this, you know, because that brings so many other things, you know. So I don't want to get too deep here. Wow.
No, what was your question? Go ahead.
So what is it that excites you the most about what's happening in food today?
Well, the involvement of the farm, yes, the interest that people have, and that kind of unique to America too, to a certain extent, because for many Europeans, you know, they look at American and say, oh, those people eat 5 dishes, this is it, hot dog, hamburger, fried chicken, pizza, and canned macaroni, whatever. Which is, of course, not true, and which is, of course, true. If you go into the mall crowd, if you want, that's usually where you have a lot of obese people, and they will eat 4 or 5 dishes over and over again. That's what people eat. But then, conversely, you move in any urban center, even a small town now, I mean, the amount of restaurants is staggering, and the diversity, because we are a country of ethnic people. So one night you're going to eat Turkish, then the day after is Shanghai, then it may be Italian, French, Portuguese, Greek, and all that. And that's the way people eat, which is absolutely amazing. Even for me, I go back to France now, and after a while, I'm bored with the food because I'm used to more diversity and other things here. Because if you go to France, the food is good, and you're born with that type of food, that's what you eat. So 99% of people eat French. There are Chinese restaurants and all that, but basically, I'm talking especially in the country, people will eat French. I did the same thing in Italy. 99.9% of Italians eat Italian food, same thing with Portuguese, with Greek, and with Spanish and so forth, because the food is good and that's what you're used to it. But in America, that's not the case. And you explode in all those different directions, and it's very exciting. and good food too.
Great.
Yes, sir.
So thanks again for coming. When you were talking a little bit about Hell's Kitchen, I was reminded of your memoir, The Apprentice, and or was it The Apprenticeship? I apologize. It's been a few years, but it's a wonderful book. And I was trying to think back to your descriptions of what it was like to kind of cook in the old world in France, of kind of like the great French chefs, and what that apprenticeship was like, and how in some ways it could be pretty brutal. And I thought those were kind of very interesting descriptions, because it's like we went through kind of a dead zone of cooking, at least in America, and as you said today, it's back. So what was all that like when you were young in France, coming up, and then maybe a little bit of what it was like when you were kind of cooking for the government and the royalty? I mean, that whole trajectory of your career is sort of unknown to Americans, I guess. Yes.
Well, from 56 to 59, I was chef to the president in France. Under the Fourth Republic, the government were changing at a rapid pace, and I finished with de Gaulle in 59. And someone introduced me, as you did a few weeks ago, and said, that man cooked for 3 French presidents. 3 of them are dead. Okay. I think one is still alive. Not sure. The apprenticeship that I did, it was another world. Interestingly enough, if I look at my father, even I never knew my grandfather, they all died in the First World War, but my father and other older people at that time, my generation, it was different than they were, but not that different. Remember, there was no plane still at the time. We had no television, of course, no internet. It was really barely electricity. So it was different. I mean, for my parents, it was different for me, but not that different. Now I look at my granddaughter. Wow, in those 1 or 2 generations. I mean, they look at my book, it's like the Middle Age. I mean, it's really, really another world. Just, just the management of the stove to start with. We had a stove that you start in the morning, put some paper and some wood, and coal, and you have to keep that thing hot. Now, those were very large rectangular stove, probably almost as big as that stage. And there is different 6 people working on each, 3 in each side, too, like the sauce department, fish, and so forth. And then in between, there was oven. You open the door on one side, on the other side, it was like a funnel. So there was no thermostat, of course, or stuff like that. When that thing was really red on top, temperature was probably 500 degrees in the oven. And on one side, someone is cooking a fish. I'm cooking a souffle on the other side. So you have to work within the food itself to move it close to the door, open the door a little bit, put a thing in front of it to regulate the temperature and so forth. It's not like, you put it on the timer, 20 minutes, 375, go take a nap. It was a totally different things. And when that stove was hot, like at the Plaza Athénée in Paris, still we had those stove. The people are coming, the lunch crowd come at 12 o'clock. Now, the people in charge of the stove, which was the first commis, if you did not regulate it properly, then that thing is not lukewarm, but not really hot enough for the first 30 people who come in, and that pushed back the whole dining room. I mean, when that people came in the dining room, that stove had to be red, where the chef would be out of his mind, And so just the management of that was a great deal of work, which of course doesn't exist at all anymore because it's another world. Now, there was no school really, you worked behind the line as an apprentice. And you were not particularly well treated. If you did something wrong, you get kicked in the behind. And that was, not a big deal, but that's the way things were with some people, not with all. And but also the fact that they didn't tell you anything. They do a sauce. You say, what is that? They say, it's a sauce nonot, which means nothing. Or if the chef tell you, do this, and you say, why? First, I would not even have said why. But I mean, if I had said why, it's because I just told you. That's about the end of the explanation. So you learn by osmosis, by stealing the things. And there was no recipe. It was purely memory of the senses, in the Proustian sense, of the taste and look and smell and so forth. And then for a year, I clean up pot, pan, did vegetable too, and one day the chef told me, tomorrow you start at the stove. wow, I was flabbergasted. I said, well, I don't know. I went to the stove, I knew how to do it. Why did I know how to do it? I didn't remember. Through that type of osmosis. That was the type of apprenticeship which was, which is very different now. But remember, I was 13, 14, 15 years old during my apprenticeship, and it's a way of learning which is still applied to a certain extent. I mean, I used to teach skiing upstate New York here. That's how I met my wife. I've been married 47 years. So I would teach skiing. I remember for several years I taught the kid, middle school or whatever it was, 7, 8 years old, 10 years old, from a Catskill high school, and they would come up to teach kids how to ski. You go up the mountain, say, stay close to me, and you go down. If you put them on a line and talk to them about the fall line and the position of the wedge of your wedge and all that, it comes here, it comes out there, they want to ski. The same weekend, I'm giving a class to a lawyer, maybe, younger, than that person, 30 years old, to want to know why I'm turning, why this, why the position too. It's totally different explanation. This is the way, probably what we do now at the French Culinary Institute here. We cater to the people. It costs a fortune. We explain, we show them, we cater to them. Totally different than when I was an apprentice. When I'm there, sometimes there is graduation, and often I'm a judge. I'm amazed. Absolutely amazed what they can do in the 6 months they have been there. I would never have been able to do that after 3 years of apprenticeship, never. However, I was certainly much faster with my knife, cleaning all kind of manual things that you learn to that type of handless repetition, So a very different way of learning now than it used to be.
Great. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
You can come back for a ham sandwich or anything else anytime you like. Thank you.
I do, girl. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.